everyone. It is now 6:29 and 30 seconds. And just want to make sure everybody's happy to be here. We usually don't start till 6:30, but by golly, we're just trying to get ahead of ourselves. First, all we're going to do today is a roll call, and it appears the gang's all here. So, Paul, for your records, all council members and mayors in attendance, we need a motion to approve the agenda, please. Okay, we have a motion to approve. We have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Agenda is approved. Okay, we'll move now to the Planning and Development Committee report. Lisa Newberry.
Thank you, Mayor. Robbie Schwartz is going to come up and read the, we have 2 cases and a variance. He's going to read them into record.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First, I'm going to go ahead and read both of these cases into the record. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and read all 3 of these instances into the record as they are all pertaining to the same case so that you can have your discussion and the public hearing accordingly. First up is case number V24-015, ENS Rentals, LLC, requested a major variance for the property located at 164 Bobby Boss Drive, Loganville, Georgia 30052, map and parcel number LG060163. The present zoning is CH, and the ordinance and section from which relief is sought is zoning ordinance 119-432A, minimum buffer specifications, which require a 30-foot buffered strip between the CH zoning of this parcel and the R16 of the adjacent parcel. The applicant has requested to reduce this to 15 feet. Let the record reflect that this was recommended for denial by staff, but it was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission with the stipulation of fencing and trees be planted in between the parcels. The second case is V24-018, ENS Rentals LLC, requested a major variance for the property located at 164 Bobby Boss Drive, Loganville, Georgia 30052. Map and parcel number LG060163. Present zoning is CH. Ordinance and section from which relief is sought is the City of Loganville Development Regulation 6.3.3C as it relates to the length of a deceleration lane required for this project to place additional commercial buildings on the site. For this case, both the staff recommendation and the Planning Commission recommendation were for approval. And the third case related to this is the requested variance from the Public Utilities Department for 164 Bobby Boss Drive to change the detention pond's required 4-to-1 slope and have it replaced with concrete vertical walls, and to reduce the detention pond easement from 20 feet to 10 feet. This request was denied by the Department of Utilities, and the applicant is appealing that decision to the mayor and council. I would like to ask that the mayor and council, if you would, please address C first, as that's the ripple effect onto A and B. If C should be denied, there's no reason to move forward with A and B. So at this time, I believe the applicant is here, would like to speak.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Robert Gardner. I'm with Gardner Law Firm in Winder, Georgia. I've also got the owner of the property and our engineer here, so if y'all have any questions. I've asked that they pull this up. Well, y'all can't see that, can you?
It's tough.
If we could make that just a little bit bigger.
We had copies in our packet.
Okay, so in terms of this property, I don't know if all of y'all are familiar with the property. It's basically, it borders Bobby Boss on one side and Tommy Lee Fuller on the other side. If you come in from Bobby Boss, there are 2 small rental properties. One is right now being rented by a tattoo parlor, and then the other one is vacant. There's some work that's going to have to be done with that one. And then there's a gravel drive that goes behind those 2 buildings to 2 older metal buildings. Now, between those 2 metal buildings, which you see are not the ones that are colored, they're the 2 smaller ones to the right of that picture. They're older, used to be Thrower Electric, used to be the owner. We purchased it from them. They're no longer there. And then there's a big grassy slope that goes all the way down to Tommy Lee Fuller. Now, we talked to some of the neighbors at the Planning Commission meeting. I think one of them, actually both of them are here now. We talked to both of them. The lady on the left lives in she owns a rental property, which is on right on the corner of Bobby Boss and Tommy Lee Fuller. The other lady she lives at the other corner of the property, and they both indicated to us, and the utility department has indicated to us that this is a piece of property. There's been a lot of flooding historically near this property. There are no sewer lines. The closest sewer, I think, would be 400 feet to get to the sewer line. So what happens is all that water from the property just essentially flows all the way down to Tommy Lee Fuller. So what we had intended to do is to build 2 more commercial buildings with a paved parking lot toward Tommy Lee Fuller. They would have nice facades and look a heck of a lot better than what's there. However, we need a detention pond. So we looked at the detention pond regulations, and I know that y'all did a lot of work on new detention pond regulations. And the regulations require a 4-to-1 slope. The problem is, and our engineer can address this, if we have to have a 4-to-1 slope, there's no room to do anything else on this property. So we came up with an idea of doing the detention pond as it is here with a 4-foot vertical wall. And I understand for aesthetic reasons why people don't like the vertical walls, that there have been problems with them in the past. But what we had intended to do is to take that vertical wall, and that's part of the case B, I'm sorry, part of the, on case C, it was to reduce the detention pond easement from 20 feet to 10 feet, and that is on Tommy Lee Fuller. That's a 10-foot buffer to the utility easement on Tommy Lee Fuller. Now, we're going to come in and build a deceleration lane. We're asking for a variance from a 200-foot requirement to 157 just because we don't have to. All we've got is 157. We're going to put sidewalks there on Tommy Lee Fuller. And then we're going to have, where that wall ends, there's going to be a berm that's going to be planted with permanent plants, evergreen plants, and really beautify it so that when you see it from Tommy Lee Fuller, what you're going to see is just a beautiful berm with nice plantings that we'll maintain. Typically the reason for the 20-foot easement is for maintenance, but if you look at the very top, there's maintenance into this detention pond will be from the top of the picture, and all the maintenance can be done within the detention pond, and there's no reason to get any kind of heavy equipment up to maintain the wall because it can be done from the inside. Our engineer can talk about this too, but this detention pond and the study that we have run is going to reduce any flooding except for these twice-a-year storms that you get. I think we had some was it this time last year? I live in Winder. Y'all get a lot of the same weather. We had 2 that were just real bad. It's not going to prevent that. Pretty much nothing will. But anything short of 1 inch of rain is not going to get onto that. It's going to actually reduce the flooding or any water runoff on that property by 40% with this design, which would be the same with a 4-to-1. It's just with a 4-to-1, we wouldn't be able to build the thing anyway, and you're just going to have a grassy slope pretty much forever that's just pouring water into that road. So we think it's a benefit to the city. It's going to beautify that area. Right now, when you look up that grass to Tommy Lee Fuller, from Tommy Lee Fuller, all you see is 2 old metal buildings. We're going to put real pretty facades with a parking lot, and essentially what you would see is you would see the deceleration lane. You would now see a sidewalk, and then you would see a berm of plantings, and then in the background you would see these two new buildings with nice facades on them. As far as the two other variants we were asking, one is to reduce the buffer down to 15 feet for the rental property and the owners here. We talked to her about that, and that was what she had requested, and she can speak to that. The other was for the decel lane, and obviously we wouldn't need either if we can't do this detention pond the way it is. It's really just the only alternative there. I understand that there's some significant improvements that are going to be coming to Tommy Lee Fuller with the DOT. There's going to be traffic in that area. I think one of the neighbors says that traffic backs up real bad all the way to this area, going to where the new red light's going to be on the highway. And I think that this will be a significant benefit to the city, because we'll be able to reduce essentially all but 2 days, these 2 days where you get 3 or 4 inches of rain in 24 hours. Unless you put sewer in there, which is extremely expensive and cost prohibitive, then nothing's going to stop the rain, except this will on 99% of the days of the year. You won't have that flooding on her property or on Tommy Lee Fuller, and we think it's going to look pretty. And we're here to answer any questions y'all have, any concerns. Again, I do understand y'all did a lot of work. We talked to the water department. Y'all did a lot of work on these detention ponds in the 4-to-1. It's just in this case, the 4-to-1 makes it where we can't build anything. It would take essentially from the road all the way up to those other two buildings, and it just wouldn't be effective in this case.
So let me start by this, say thank you very much for presenting and telling us what your plan is. We're going to open up the public hearing also at this time, but now that the developer spoke, does anyone have any questions for the developer while he's up here? Mayor
We
and
have our
council.
owner and our engineer here too, and they can answer
Okay,
any questions.
would they like to speak?
If you have questions,
Okay.
actually, I'd like the engineer to talk about the water a little bit.
Certainly.
Because that was a big concern that the water department had, and for their rejection.
Good evening. My name is Bobby Bullard. Yes, we submitted a stormwater report with our submittal, and Robert is correct. And it's really a Georgia stormwater rule in Georgia that as of about 3 years ago, you're not just, there's several components in detention stormwater treatment. And one of them, you've probably heard of the detention, which what detention does is it reduces the peak rate for certain storms, but you still have more water. The newest component that was added about 3 years ago is called runoff reduction. And what we had to do in this case is infiltrate the water into the soil. So in this case, we had a geotechnical engineer go out there, test the soil, and figure out if it was indeed good enough soil to infiltrate the first inch of rain into what we have. It's kind of a gravel bed. It's about 4.5 feet deep, number 4 stone with pea gravel on top, and it absorbs the water. So there is no choice for the water to be released. It has to be released at the low point of the site. There's no option of putting it anywhere because there's no storm drain system anywhere nearby. It's over 400 feet away. So the only option is to let the water be released at the low point of the site. The question is, would it be coming out of, in one case, underground detention or a detention pond? And what we have here is a pond that has an infiltration system in it that absorbs the water. So now I want to say a little bit about the 4-to-1 slope. If you took, and understand what you guys are working towards there, but if you took that right there, about 4 feet tall, imagine 16 feet out, there's not a whole lot you can do as far as volume. And what I did is I calculated kind of what would happen if I put in a 4-to-1 slope. and it comes up from the road at a 4-to-1 slope, just trying to get the same volume that I got into that pond. And by the time I did the pond and got up to the back to the top of the slope, we were at the base of the two existing buildings, which is just, in this case, because of the slopes, a 4-to-1 slope does not work. So, but if anybody has any questions, I can answer anything you need.
Questions? I also want Brandon to come up and speak. I don't know if you want to hold your questions for Brandon after Brandon. Brandon, do you mind coming up? And give us your staff recommendation.
Can I ask to see that paper that you brought, please?
This is the same volume that we have in that pond. And we basically went right here at the property line and went up at a 4-to-1 slope. And this is the top, and then it comes down in here, and this is the volume, it's the blue part. And then the 4-to-1 slope comes back up, and this is the only room that's left.
Okay.
Oh, well, I do have a question for him. Do you want to wait till?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So what questions did you have?
Just explain to us what the, what your stance, your department is, what your recommendation is.
So we go by those guidelines, the detention pond guidelines that you guys voted and approved. And, which, yeah, so we go by the landscape designs and detention pond guidelines, you know, and of course it states that it has to be a 4-to-1 slope. I can only approve a 3-to-1 slope if it's under an acre, which it's not. So this is the reason why I'm denying that, because I don't really have the authority to approve what they're requesting as far as reducing the size of that pond by using, you know, concrete walls and other means, so.
And can you explain to us again, I know you and I talked about the part about the concerns were where the water was going to go. Was it going to dump out on Tommy Lee Fuller?
Yes, I know that our engineers reviewed it, and one of their comments was that it needed to be piped, that it couldn't discharge onto the driveway and out into Tommy Lee Fuller. So that was one of the comments that our engineers made on the first submittal, which I think was back in December. So they were recommending that it be piped. So I don't know how many, he said it's about 400 foot. That could be correct. I'm not really sure, but there isn't any piping out there. It's all flat land, flat ditches, and there's really, I don't know the way that they're designing their pond that they can actually do that, because they're actually building that pond up. And it appears that the bottom of the pond is pretty level, like even with the road. So they're building that up, so there's really no way for them, the way they have it designed, to allow it to go underground into a piping system and go under their entranceway and down a ditch, so.
So where will it go? Just in the ground or down Tommy Lee Fuller?
It appears it'll go into Tommy Lee Fuller, discharge onto their driveway and then out into Tommy Lee Fuller.
Okay. Thank you. And
Yes, ma'am.
questions for Brandon? Go ahead.
Brandon, what's the advantage of having concrete walls? What's the advantage of having concrete walls?
I think in their case, because they can't meet the 4-to-1 slope requirements, they'll be able to reduce the size of that pond and use the concrete walls to be able to retain that water in the detention pond.
But then the sidewalls don't absorb any of it, right? It
Not
just
with
runs
concrete.
down.
It runs, it infiltrates down, yes.
Okay, Mr. Bullard, just for info, because I don't know, what would the cost be to run a pipe 400 feet?
Oh, it would be astronomical. Yeah, I mean, it's also, there's a whole lot of area water from the area. It would take a piping system. Typically, it comes in with curb and gutter as well. When you have pipes like that and you run down the Loganville right-of-way, it's very, very expensive. It would make this project unfeasible. I wanted to mention one other thing that we had in our report that, and then first of all, I just want to reiterate what is inside of that wall, which the wall will not be seen from Tommy Fuller. Robert explained that it is a landscape against there, so the wall will not be seen. But the inside of there is a infiltration trench that absorbs the water, And then one other thing that we put in our study is, if you look out there, this is kind of a day after when it was sort of wet, and you can see this area is so flat, and there's no ditch really there, and that's the biggest issue. And what we were proposing to do, just because of since we're infiltrating the water to get most of it, the first inch of rain will infiltrate into the ground. But the other water that remains wet along Tommy Fuller, we were proposing to put in a French drain. So the French drain would go across here to soak that water out of that ditch in this area. So that was just something that when I was out there, I noticed it was soggy, and French drains work really well. So that was just another idea that we had.
I have two
Yeah,
questions. Oh,
right now, the water goes to that, I guess that would be the southeast corner of the property, and there's really nowhere else to put it. That is the low point of the property, and so that is where it goes now.
The water is built on the Tommy Lee Fuller now, and with our plan, there will be less water. Okay. Hey, Mayor and Council, my name is Mitch Blanchard. I grew up in Loganville. I went to high school here. I purchased this building with my father, just to give a little background of who I am. I wanted to point out that the water today exits onto Tommy Lee Fuller. And with our plan, we'd have a lot less water. In all scenarios, I think even in the worst storm, it would be reduced by 40%. But in a typical storm that is around an inch of rain, nothing would go into Tommy Lee Fuller. So the way we see it, everyone who lives along Tommy Lee Fuller will have a benefit from this because there will be less water going into the road than there is today. That's the only note I had.
Go ahead. I have two questions. Brandon, the first one's to you. You said in your staff report that a reasonable hardship to justify has not been provided. What would a reasonable hardship be?
Well, I think and I don't know, I think it was in a report, it might have been given to Robbie, I'm not sure, but I know that, I think it was more of an economical hardship, and I think that we have policies in place there that says that doesn't really qualify for a hardship. But I haven't really been provided anything other than that,
Okay.
as far as,
And the second question I have might be to you, but regardless of the applicant in front of us, would anybody on this site have the same issue with the 4-to-1 slope? Is it the size of the property, and no matter what you put on it, pretty much you can't build on it because of the 4-to-1 would take the entire lawn?
is that a question for me or for?
Yeah, probably to you, yeah.
And can I clarify that a little bit? Because my question goes along with what you're
Sure,
asking.
how about it?
So my question is the staff has said that they're appealing on a hardship, based on a hardship they're creating, and they're trying to build 2 buildings here and a big parking lot, which creates a lot of the impervious surface that is creating the water runoff. My question is if they reduced it to 1 building, are they still gonna have to have the size pond? They won't, because they won't have the same amount of
Well, no, I
runoff.
understood that if they put the pond up, it would go to the front of the buildings that are there right now.
No, it'll be in front of the new buildings they build.
Which is it?
The hardship is the slopes. If you look at Tommy Fuller and you look at the base of the 2 existing buildings up there, there's a pretty big grade difference.
Right.
And when you add a 4-to-1 slope, which basically would end at the back of that chair to the edge of that is an extremely flat slope. And I understand your reasoning in wanting to have that much slope, but on this site, we have a hardship in that the slope up to the existing buildings is too steep for it to work. It doesn't matter what you put there, there's not gonna be, because of the steep slope up to the shape is so wide, it goes up, and like I had here, these are actual, this is the actual slope from the road. I go up, every 2 feet, you have a contour.
Right.
So you go up to the grade, which is a 2, 4, 6, 8, or 7 feet right there. You go down 6 feet, you go across, and there's just nothing left by the time you get to the top. You're right there at the base of the buildings.
Of the existing buildings?
Yes, ma'am.
So, yeah, that's kind of what I was under, so right now, the only way for them to do anything with that would be to tear down the existing and put up new to do the 4-to-1.
Right, but our numbers for the amount of runoff that you have to capture is based on the amount of impervious surface that you're creating. So I'm asking if they create a smaller impervious surface,
Probably
the size
smaller.
of their pond would reduce, and then their footprint of their pond would be
I
smaller.
don't know, that's a Brandon question.
Somewhat, but at the same time, we still have the same hardship of the slope up to the building. So let's say we did one building, we would still have to put in a 4-to-1 slope to try to, and because of the wide shape and how it comes up in the slopes, the hardship of the slope keeps us from being able to put that in.
Robbie, I see you shaking your head. Do you have anything to add to that?
Like Brandon or Joe will say,
It's hard for us to declare something as a hardship without the engineers further analyzing whether if this is reduced in scope. If they have the size of their impervious surface, their hardship would not be as bad, as egregious. So, but I believe at that point, an engineer, it's hard for us to answer that question without an engineer taking further analysis.
Well, I guess sort of where I was thinking is that as of right now, all the water goes on the road. This is an improvement to that
Well, by 40%, he said.
on the worst days, 40% on the worst days.
Yeah, but look how much rain we've had just in this year.
It's true. Thank you.
How
though,
much
very
area
Thank you.
is the asphalted area that you want to put in there? Pretty significant. That's going to cause more water coming down, obviously.
well, and I can address that because we addressed that with the planning commission. We talked about that because they had asked, could we pave the parking lot that's behind the existing buildings? We didn't want to do that because that gives us an impervious surface. With this parking lot that'll be in front of these buildings, it will be flat and can capture that and go right into the infiltration. Right now, what's happening is you've got a slope all the way down, and that water just pours all the way down. So if anything, yes, we will be adding an impervious surface. We'd be fine adding gravel there but it's not allowed. Anything you build there under the zoning regulations and the building code has to be a paved parking lot. So we'd be fine doing a gravel parking lot. We just did it as a paved parking lot because we're required to do so. And we're actually taking out some of the volume, because what happens is when you got a slope like this, that water comes down, it comes down hard. And that's how it gets all the way into the street. With the French drain, and we haven't even done the studies on the French drain, but the French drain would probably reduce this even more. And one of the one of the property owners on the corner, she could probably talk to you more about what she's seen historically in terms of the flooding on the property that goes to her property. And that's really what we want to address. This company wants to, I mean, they're a good company. We want good businesses in there. The businesses that we're going to be leasing to are going to be primarily like mail order businesses. So the traffic that'll come in there will just be Amazon delivery trucks. We're not going to have big trucks in there. It's not going to be a significant volume of traffic and parking. It's not going to be retail where there are going to be a lot of people driving there. But we want to be good neighbors. I've represented this company for years. And what they like to do is take property that has had historic problems, go in and make it better. He and his dad own this company. They both live here in Walton County. And they want this to be a successful and to be an attractive business because it's good for them too. If they've got attractive buildings and there's no water and no flooding and you've got attractive landscaping and you've got happy neighbors, then that makes for good business. And that's what they're looking to do here.
Brandon, what about the tree situation? Is that a real issue, or is that just a proverbial thing?
Well, they're wanting to reduce the easement to 10 foot from 20 foot, but then they're also wanting to plant trees and stuff on it there. And I know we don't typically allow trees on easements, just for access purposes. So we can access the easements,
But no other harmful reasons or?
No.
Okay.
So, Mr. Bullard mentioned that the study's been done where it's talking about the absorption and the rock layer and all that. Is that the same study that our engineers reviewed?
Is that a question for me, or?
That's a question for you. On how, how that, one of the things we were talking about here was what, is water going to spill out and cross Tommy Lee Fuller? But obviously it's going to hold it for a certain period of time. Is there any type of feedback on what's coming out of it, or is it all being absorbed into the ground?
I don't have an answer for that. I just know, based on the comments that they made, that they recommended it being piped. So I don't know if they had a concern that possibly it could be an issue discharging it onto the street. The amount of water, I don't really know.
They had no problem with that component of the study, which is the infiltration. It's required now. And so they had no comments with the infiltration. As long as it has that geotechnical engineer study, site-specific, that shows that the soil will absorb it, then it
To enter it, to maintain it, I mean, is what?
there is a drive on that. You see the drive that comes off of the decel lane. If you come up and it comes down into it, it is a drive with a 20% slope down into what is called the forebay, which is the first part of a pond that captures any debris or anything that's there. And from the forebay, it spills over a little rock dam into the next stage, which is the infiltration basin. And then from the infiltration basin, after the water is absorbed there, anything that may not get absorbed in those larger storms, it spills over into the detention part of the basin. And out of the detention basin, in that very corner, it has, I think it's a 2-inch orifice that which causes the detention portion of it, which reduces the peak rate of the larger storms. So the velocities and the peak rate will be significantly reduced. And like I said, the first flush, which is the first inch of rain over the impervious spaces, are designed to infiltrate into the soil.
Is it a full driveway width going down in there to maintain it?
It's 15 feet wide.
Okay, it's hard to tell in there. You mentioned the French drain. I don't know that we've ever done that on roadway right away.
It's just so flat. If you look at the grades there's
Right,
probably.
and
yeah.
that's where I was going with it, is if you put it in there, it's going to be below grade anyway, so it's not really going to be able to drain it.
If we take it down to the low point, there does begin to be some drop right there at the south east corner. So you take the infiltration out to there. And a French drain absorbs the water from the area around it. And it's really just an idea just to keep it from, it's so flat. There's really no other option. I noticed it when I was out there. It's not really anything required, but it's not part of the Georgia stormwater rules, but I just think it would be better if we were able to absorb some of the wetness there.
Right, typically we try to use like a draw swell or a ditch to get it away from the roadway, that type of thing, and then get rid of it. So when we went through the modification to the stormwater, I mean, a big part of it was we're trying to make, these detention ponds more attractive, more easier, better maintained, because that's been an issue, and that we've been working on. And I guess one concern that I have, I look at it and I go, you've got this concrete wall there, so you've replaced yes, you're putting trees in front of it, but it's still a big visible concrete wall. Is there any other consideration of what you could do there as opposed to just
Well, it's easy accessible to the inside to get it, to make sure it's maintained. When you have the drive, the 15-foot drive down into the bottom, you can maintain. And then again, from Tommy Lee Fuller, the landscape goes right up to the top of the wall. If you, can you scroll down a little bit on the, you can see up there, we kind of did a cross-section review. It's a little bit more, can you, and then move this way a little bit? Can we, yeah, zoom in. Now zoom in. That's an actual scaled, scaled view from what you could see the road, you could see the landscape, and then the wall there. You would see the landscape against the wall. And the wall, for the most part, at the very tallest point is 4 feet. But for the most part, it's what, 2.5 up to 3, and then it gets 4 right there at the low point. So it's really a way to capture volume in that area. But from Tommy Lee Fuller, you will see the landscaping and you will see the buildings. And I know that was a big consideration in what you guys voted on with your landscape maintenance. And so we tried to work with the intent of it, which is to have a nice view from Tommy Lee Fuller.
Last question real quick. So where's the right-of-way line, the city's right-of-way in relation to the sidewalk and the
It is right where you see PROP. So the landscaping starts a couple of feet behind there. And again, the pond is easily
Bill, to answer your question from our engineer, items 13, 26, 27, 28, 29 needs to be addressed. That was our engineer's question on page 53 and 54 of your packet. Talks about the French drain and the outlet construction and the dumping into Tommy Lee Fuller. They need more information.
What was that again, Danny?
Which numbers?
Where's that, Danny?
Page 53, item 13 addresses the French drain. It says applicant should clarify how the drain will, from the roadway, will drain to the French drain. Item 26 talks about clarify the OCS, which is outlet control structure. The pond reports indicates 24-inch pipe discharging from the pond. However, the plans and the outlet details do not show this, so that needs to be shown. The spillway, it looks like it's may discharge into the road. That's item 27. I'm sorry, 28. And 29 is just clarifying some more stuff. So those will address your questions, Bill, about our engineer.
Sure. And
So
those are in the letter dated December 11th. What, has the applicant addressed those questions, or?
Yeah, those are mainly just clear. There's nothing structurally other than discharging into the road. But the pond, the wall is it's about 15 feet from the ditch. And so it flows down into the ditch that is it is soggy now, but it does flow. It doesn't flow into the road, it flows into the ditch. And I know this isn't the best ditch in Loganville, but it's what we have, so.
Let me clarify my question. So these comments were given back to the applicant, and have they been addressed back to the city?
I believe we only have one submittal, and they have not been addressed.
This was done by Tim Prater in 2023, if y'all were wondering what we're looking at.
Yeah, I've seen those, and we have addressed those, but until we resubmit, we need to clarify these things first so that we can know what we're going to do with the water when it comes out of the pond, and if we can use a wall rather than the 4-to-1 slope. So though we know we have big issues we need to take care of, but none of the things he came up with were issues they're more like addressing formality details that we before we went back to him, but all the others were not anything that we not already addressed in
Well,
our plans.
I was wondering, because Miss Williams lives on the low end of this, she lives on your low end of your property, she's the
Yes.
neighbor there, and you were talking about a French drain a while ago, and I was sitting here thinking,
Let me back up. There's two things. The pond has a large infiltration basin in it with lots of rock. It's 4.5 feet. That's a totally different thing. That absorbs the huge majority of the water that falls on this site. Before it reaches her property. So immediately, there's something that's going to actually be absorbing the water into the ground before it gets to her property. And I noticed that it was wet. So my suggestion was, we really can't propose in Loganville, because that's Loganville's property. But I suggested that to get rid of the wetness that's there, that a French drain would work.
but where would the French drain to?
It would have to drain at our low point. And, we can talk to her. She may want to let it go further across her property too. It's a Loganville property that we were basically proposing to prevent it from being soggy, because he doesn't want his development to look wet out front. He wants it to look a certain way.
Was for ease of maintenance, I'd be able to get a mower in there, stuff like that. And what would the maintenance look like on something like this? You're just gonna see a lot of the stone. What happens when weeds and stuff like that get in there? Is that pretty easy to clean out?
It's real easy to maintain because the whole thing is flat. It does have the rock berms in it, but they are easy to maintain. We've done a lot of these since 2021, since these were required. And the infiltration basins themselves have a layer of pea gravel over it. And the forebay catches any debris.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pea gravel, I've seen them 3 years later, and I could show you pictures if you want to at the next meeting of a lot of these infiltration basins. They're really working really well.
They don't get like scrub pine trees grow up in them
No.
or anything like that?
No, there is, part of the Georgia Stormwater Manual is to have a regular maintenance agreement, and Loganville has it as well. They have to have, the owner has to certify that they are maintaining at least after the storms, but every year, maintaining and making sure the pond is being maintained, so.
And would you have a problem with maybe one of the city staff giving us a copy of that paper that you brought with us so we could all look at it to show the burden of
I guess, to myself, these questions that our city engineer posed, I think there's a lot. For myself, I'd like to see those addressed before I have to make a decision. As far as being opposed to, that's what we're here for. We set up the provision so that, it would come before us in this case, like this, and, understand the reason. But I'd be reluctant to move forward without knowing that these questions our city engineers asked, that they at least have a good answer to.
Well, we'd be glad to have an in-person meeting with him before we come back to you, or whatever you need to do to table it, or whatever we need to do. We'd be glad to discuss it.
Do we have a copy of those questions? Do we know what they are?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think we can get you those answers in writing. I was under the impression that they were handled via email since December, but if there's outstanding questions, we absolutely want to answer them tonight.
Yes, because there is a lot of them on here. I know a lot of them are kind of ticky-tack, like how y'all show things on here. But like Danny said, the questions like 14 or 13 down, those are some of the big stuff we're gonna kind of have to know maybe before.
Certainly, yeah, that, I would call that an oversight, but I'll make sure we get those to you.
And if we could get those like before Thursday's meeting, that would be very helpful, so we can look at them.
Yes.
I guess we have to submit it back to
Yeah, I don't know.
precision planning.
Keckenwood can turn around that quick.
Yeah, okay.
Answer the questions. So I don't want to bind the engineer with a 2-day turnaround time. So I will do my best, but I will call them first thing in the morning. If you can have them to me. This is online if you want to go look at it's online, so you can see the questions yourself.
Yeah, what I can do is, we've already actually done a lot of this, but of course, we had the big issues that we knew we needed to take care of before we move forward, but I can write on the comments, comments back to him, and then I can get it to him, so.
Seems like a lot to absorb in 3 days.
It is.
Should we table this to the July meeting?
This is your public hearing. Don't take any action tonight. Let's finish your public
Yeah,
hearing.
we still need to have the
all right?
public.
Okay.
So you're hearing from the applicant. Y'all have asked tons of questions. Totally fine. Let's finish your public hearing. Anybody here in favor, anybody here against, and you can close the public hearing. And then if y'all want to take any type of action, whatever it is, y'all aren't going to take it tonight anyway. You're going to take it on Thursday.
That's right.
And if I could just say, I think what Bobby's saying is, he's been going back and forth on emails with some of this. It just may not have gotten to the right place. So we'll send that, and then we'll touch base, I guess, early Thursday and see where we are, and if we need to table it, or if y'all have had a chance to look at it, we'll just touch base Thursday and do that.
You just send them to Robbie and he'll forward them to the Keckenwood, to Aaron. Aaron Humphreys is the engineer.
Okay, any other questions from mayor and council? Everybody good? Okay, so is there anyone in the audience that would like to come up and speak in opposition of this?
Favor. Anybody in favor first?
Favor first? Okay,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
let's get
Favor, anyone in favor like to come up and speak?
Anybody in favor?
See none? Anyone in
Well,
opposition?
I think we got somebody. Are you guys in favor?
Their opposition.
Opposition, okay. Okay. Misunderstood.
Good evening, everyone. Jane Williams, 220 Tom Lee Fuller Drive. I'm the owner. So I have a few concerns here. One, of course, is the decel lane and the easement, and the proximity of it to 220 Tom Lee Fuller Drive, and how close you come, you know, in order to get to where you need to get to. I don't know. So, and also the 401 slope. And I understand y'all want to put a wall. Well, I always talk about infrastructure. We have to make sure that our infrastructure meets whatever we build. And I'm a little concerned about the 4-to-1. Oh, well, not that, because you all are saying that the guidelines are 4-to-1. But if you put a wall there, then, and we already know the flooding. So if we put a wall there, I'm just afraid that at some point, it's gonna start to sink if we don't have something that's gonna be like holding it up. Like what's gonna really be helping it, you know? And so that was that. Retention ponds, okay, let's talk about the trees, okay? So, I've cut down some trees in the past couple of years. It cost me like $2,000, $3,000. Because, you know, you have, well, we've had squirrels that jump from trees to the house, and so they damage the home, right? But, you know, trees grow up, and people don't maintain trees. You know, some people just plant trees, they don't know what kind of trees to plant, you know, which trees are the best trees. They don't look at any of that. And while I am, you know, a person who loves plants and trees and all that kind of stuff, but I'm just afraid that if you put the trees there and they grow up, nobody's to maintain the trees. And, so I'm just getting all my little stuff out here, okay, y'all? Okay, now, we talk about the flooding, because the flooding is a big issue. I mean, because I wears out, Councilwoman, Melanie over here. I wear her out, because I'm like, look, somebody need to get over here and do something, get some pipes in here, do something. Of course, that's my thing. And I looked up French drains before. So I know that when you install the French drain, the water still has to go somewhere when you install that French drain. It's gonna come down, go down in there, and go somewhere, but it gotta have somewhere to escape out to, right? Okay, so, I guess that could be something, but I think you need some pipes up in that camp, because there's a lot of water that comes in there. Okay, and, let me see. So, okay, let's talk about the sidewalk. Now, I'm a little confused on, so.
Ms.
like-
Williams, excuse me, will you talk into the microphone? I'm getting
I'm sorry.
feedback that they can't hear you online.
Okay,
Please.
okay, can you hear me now?
I think that's
Okay,
way
that's
better,
better.
yes, thank you.
I thought I was loud enough, I talk kind of loud, so, okay. So let's talk about the sidewalks. Now, how many sidewalks, is it gonna be like, how long is the sidewalk gonna be? Where is it gonna start and relates to my property? And where exactly is the retention pond? Is the retention pond, is it in the middle? Is it closer to Miss Connie's property on the other end? That's at Tommy Lee Fuller and Boss Drive. Or is it closer to me? Well, I don't know which one it is. I can't really.
It's
tell.
closer to you, Jane.
Oh, the retention pond is?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that
Not by
might be.
much, though. I don't think, is it?
Well,
Pretty central.
I don't know. Yeah, okay, looked like it might have been in the middle. So anywho, those are my concerns. The sidewalk, I don't even know how, it seemed like a lot going on. To me, it just seemed like a lot going on with the sidewalk, then you got the retention pond, then you got the wall, then you're gonna have the trees, then, it's a lot. So I really have a lot of questions, and maybe I need some one-on-one. I don't know. But right now, I think guidelines are in place for a reason. So I appreciate, the city of Loganville, having their own engineers to look at it as well. So those are my issues right now. I couldn't really be for it at this point. I'm just a little reluctant with some things, okay? So, and maybe it's just a lot of things I don't understand, but those are my main concerns. And then how you gonna reduce the flooding? Now, my main issue is the flooding. How would you reduce that to 40%? I don't really see how, if the water is still running down, there's nothing down there to really capture the water, The retention pond, the retention pond is gonna be what capture it?
The retention pond holds the water.
Yeah.
So the 40% number I said is in the worst storm possible. But in a typical rain, like we had last night, 100% would be captured. Thank you. So in all scenarios, the flooding would be reduced. And only the 40% number I gave is the worst storm we've ever had, would be reduced by 40%. But a typical storm would be reduced completely with nothing in the road, because this concrete basin will hold the water and it will slowly drain into the 4 feet of gravel in the base of the basin. So it will capture, on a typical rain like we had yesterday, all of it, and nothing will get in the road. So there's, and this is not a comparison between retention pond and no retention pond with these buildings. This is a comparison between with the project and no project. And if we do nothing, the water will continue to go to the low point, which is the corner of your property, and continue to pool there. But if we build this, it will greatly reduce the amount of water that gets to your property and the road, because the basin will catch it. And just to quickly address your other questions, and we would be more than happy to have a one-on-one with you and speak more at length about these. But the decel lane will only be on our property. The decel lane will not affect your property. The sidewalks are, that's kind of funky because they might not connect to anything. But
Right.
it's
What's the use of that?
it looks nice, but it's I kind of agree, but
Yeah, not
that's
going
part of the plan.
So you could save some of that money for the astronomical stuff.
But, and about the trees, we would be
Miss
happy.
Lisa, excuse, hang on just a minute, Miss Lisa. So this is a time for those for those in opposition. Y'all are receiving spoken word of opposition. This isn't Q&A or debate class. So,
Oh, sure. Okay, yeah.
And so I believe that.
my first time, sorry.
I believe that the opposition has 3 minutes per speaker generally.
Oh,
You may allow more time if you choose. And so I think there's somebody else here for opposition, so we just need to get through all this public hearing.
Well, we-
Thank
Y'all
you.
can ask all the questions you want later.
Thank you.
My name is Connie Haney, and I'm the one at the corner of Tommy Lee and Bobby Boss. And my main concern is the traffic. There's already a lot of traffic there already. It's hard to get in and out through that area without it being bumper to bumper all the time. And the flooding, it used to be a pasture for horses. That's why it's level and everything. And you're going to always have a lot of flooding with all this rain. We're going to have it now and in the future. Because look back in '93, we had that blizzard. Where did all that snow had to go to? It melted and made it flood and everything. But if it's like 4 to 1, I can understand it being like this. And it's already at a 3 to 1. But still, that 4-1 ain't that much of an increase for the flood. So, like Miss Jane here said, where is the water going? And they say they have a filtration system, and it's going down through them rocks, but still, more rain we get, the more water's going to build up, and it's going to be more flooding. And then where that water's going to go? Out in the roads. And I basically say, I oppose this 100% because of the traffic, of the flooding, and it doesn't matter to me whether they beautify it with trees or with a wall or anything like that for the water. It's just the flooding and the traffic. You go, right now, you go down that road of Tommy Lee Fuller, you'll see it backed up from 20 all the way down to Ingalls Drive. It has been like that for years. And you can't hardly get nowhere. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes. Is there anyone else like to speak in opposition? Yes, sir.
How you doing this evening? My name is Noel Alvarado, 4389 Thompson Road. I just moved down here to Georgia about 1.5 years now. And my concern from what I'm hearing is, first of all, the hardship that they're indicating is a cost factor to them. The policies that you guys have in place already seem to be working for a reason. It seems to me that the engineers did their due diligence with whatever information they had, and they came back saying that at this time they don't see it, that there's something they want to do at this time based on all the information that they've gathered. If it was my project, I would have 25,000 people from Tommy Fuller here in favor. I see no one in favor. There must be a reason for that. Is it hush-hush that nobody knows what's really happening? Because if it was me and I want to get this project through, I would have been knocking on everybody's door and having them know what's going on and what's favorable for them. So being that I'm a resident now, and I appreciate being here, I think the presentation itself is kind of sketchy. It seems it's mostly one way, and I don't know what the vision of Loganville is down the road. If this is something that they really want, it needs to be done properly. If that piping situation is something that the engineers are saying that is something that should be done, I mean, we pay them for a reason. So I'm thinking we might want to listen to what they're bringing forward. Because, of course, the company has their vested interest in it, and they're going to present the best thing. Like the young lady was saying, you say a lot of things, 40% reduction. How are you sure about that? I don't think nobody can say, we're going to get you 40% reduction. We may anticipate that, but it's not going to work. And once it's in place, what you going to do to rectify it? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
sir. Anyone else like to speak in opposition?
I was going to be quiet, but I'm not. My name is Paul Smith. I live in Village Place, which is on Tommy Lee Fuller. We kid ourselves often going up Tommy Lee Fuller on the right where that property is. We call it Lake Loganville because of the water that backs up. I've noticed one thing, those 4 new houses built on Tommy Lee Fuller, that water is gushing down the street. And I can't see where any type of French drain, retention pond, detention pond, all of that water coming down from the parking lot, all right? And it seems to me, I respect you all trying to put as much as you can in the piece of property, but you're squeezing on the left, you're squeezing on the right, you're squeezing from the, you're squeezing from the top, and you're just pushing everything together. And I think that's a concern that at least I have, that the water is still going to flow down the road. That's very optimistic, the 40%. Okay, there's a lot of pavement on all that parking space. Those buildings have roofs, and that water's going to come down someplace, and that drainage is going to come down. And what if 5 years from now, the gravel that's at the base of the detention, retention pond is going to have sediment in it? They all do. You're going to clean all the rocks out because the water cannot seep down when the rocks are covered with dirt or mud or plants. Because at my HOA, we've had that issue. And we've had to go in thousands of dollars to replace it. But I guess with a rock, I've never experienced the rock before, but again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the dirt leaching into those rocks will inhibit soaking into it. So my concern is that the flooding might be helped. I doubt it. But that French drain is going to get clogged. It's going to have dirt. It's going to have contaminants on top of it. And then that water's going to wash right over it into the street, and we'll have Lake Loganville again. My opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else like to speak in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Kathy Swanson. I live at 904 Lee Bird Road. We discussed this in Planning and Zoning 2 months ago, and I think the biggest complaint was of all the vehicles in the parking lot now, and you said you were going to take care of it and watch it, and I was over there a week ago and tried to pull into the gravel driveway between Brian's shop and the cemetery, and it was blocked at the top, so I had to back my Yukon back down onto Bobby Boss Drive. Every vehicle that went up had to back it down. There was 2 Amazon trucks. So they had to come out, back out onto Bobby Boss, go past the shop and go up the next gravel drive. You want to put 2 more buildings. I'm assuming that's where they went. I don't know. I wasn't watching. You want to put 2 more buildings up there and a paved road coming off of Tommy Lee Fuller, and you want a reduction in you want to reduce it from 30 feet to 15 feet. Now, they've already said that you can't put any trees on it because of access, so you're leaving with this neighbor having probably most of the vehicles going up and down that paved road off of Tommy Lee Fuller, not off of Bobby Boss. And my question is, I was there a week and a half ago. I counted 42 vehicles on the gravel drive, on the gravel around the 2 buildings you've got now. How many more vehicles are you going to add to that? And all of those vehicles are going to go up and down that paved road, not the gravel road.
And again, this is a chance for you to speak your opposition, not a Q&A.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Sorry. Okay.
That's okay.
That was a rhetorical question. Okay. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, would anyone else like to speak in opposition? All right, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. And any more final questions after all this from Mayor and Council? Then we will we'll take action on this Thursday night. And that's all we have tonight for planning and development.
Okay, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
We'll move now to Finance, Human Resources, Ann Hunsinger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have the first public hearing on the budget, so I'm going to turn it over to Danny. Anybody need a break? Everybody all right? No, you're not all right? Or yes, you're okay?
I can go either way.
You can go, Lisa? You okay?
I'm good.
Break?
Okay. You good?
Oh,
Okay. You-
I didn't hear what she said.
You need a break?
No, no, I'm
Okay.
good.
You gonna blow it up, Kyle? Yeah, we'll start at the very first page.
Well, and for the public, this is the first of the public hearing. There's one as well on Thursday, and then the final one is next Tuesday, the 18th, correct?
There's two public hearings, one tonight,
And
so
then the
we'll
vote.
let Danny present, and then we'll open up a public hearing just in traditional form. There'll be another public hearing on the 13th, this Thursday.
Right.
And then your meeting on which you'll take action, no public
the
hearing,
18th.
will be the 18th.
Got it. Thank you, Paul.
Yes.
I have a few copies printed if any audience members like it. It's 140-something pages, so I only printed 3 copies, but it's definitely online, and we're going to go here. So I'll just go through this, and if you have any questions, you can stop me as we go. But first thing you notice, this is a new format from any other way that I've done before. So I want to thank, of course, everybody that helped me with this, all the department heads, Natalie and Susan, for putting this together. And we'll just start off with the going through the first couple of pages. First page, Kyle. There you go. Okay, so this is the fiscal year 25 budget. It will start June.
Mike's not picking up there.
Yeah, that's all. Can you not hear me? Okay. How about that? Is that better? So it'll start June 1st of this year July 1st this year in June 30th of 2025. We'll just go with the general budget format. So the general budget request is $15,778,670. That is a 4.6% increase from the current budget we're in. The water and sewer enterprise fund is at $9,939,000, which is a 3.88% increase from this current budget, and that is also with the 12% water rates we did. Back to the general fund, that does not include any property tax increase. That is at the current millage rate. So we have not received the digest yet, but I anticipate that we'll have another rollback. Then we get into special funds. We have a new SPLOST this year. It was just approved at the last election back in May. That is the 2025 SPLOST. It's a 6-year SPLOST. It will end in 2030. So we have 4 SPLOST now. We have the 17 in the 2023 Gwinnett. We have the 19 and the 25 Walton SPLOST. And those numbers here, you can all see what we've kind of spent. And those 4 SPLOST over 14 years were projected at $24,658,733.15. That equates to $1.7 million roughly a year. Those are based on spending, so it may ebb and flow depending on the economy. But that's what it was projected, that's what was put in the referendum, and that's what the voters voted for. But I can tell you the 2019 is actually producing more than we projected. But I can also tell you that lost and SPLOST revenues are down now because the economy's slowing down, based on what we see. SPLOST is in transportation, public safety, parks and recs, and public utilities for infrastructure. And then we get into the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. That was the money that we got during the COVID. We received $4.8 million. We have spent, to date, we still have for various different things, mostly infrastructure, we did also dedicate 1.5 million to the library. That's still not been used, but it's still dedicated. You can see the contributions, how they broke down water, sewer, stormwater, wastewater projects, $2,345,039.77. And like I said, the library at 1.5. Now, ARPA is at y'all's discretion. This is just what we, as staff, would say that we're gonna put it at, but you certainly can change that. As far as the water infrastructure, we may use it for paving roads. We did government services through ARPA. That means we can spend it on government services. There was many rules changed in ARPA. I forgot how many versions we're on now with the final rule, but it has changed over the years. It does have to be spent by December 31st, 2026. It has to be earmarked by the end of this year, which we have. And we are trying to spend it, my goal is to spend it in this calendar year of 2024, but definitely by 2025. Now we get into other funds, confiscated assets. Those are just funds that are from illegal activity that we may partake in through our DEA assistance, drugs, anything that's done illegal. The police can seize it. Once it goes to court and settled, that we get our share based on the amount of time we put in. Those funds are earmarked only to the police department. Only the police chief can approve those expenditures. And there are certain things he can spend them on. But mostly we buy cars and equipment with them typically. That's at $110,000. Of course, it ebbs and flows. We never know what's going to come from the court system. We have, I think, over $4 million on the books, but who knows when that will go to court. Hotel motel fund. This is a $85,000, not $75,000. And the capital recovery fund, that is monies based off of tap fees, percent. It can only be used for new infrastructure in the utilities department. That's your water, sewer, stormwater, or WQC, which is the water quality control. That is really quick, the whole entire budget in those 2 pages, and it breaks down into the next 140 pages of how we spend it. You can see we did a Next is just a glossary of all the definitions that we may or may not use. And then we get into individual budgets. Would y'all like to go over the individual budgets? Okay. So, and first you'll see the general fund. This is how it's broke down into all the revenue. As you can see, most of our revenue comes from tax, some form of taxes, property tax, sales tax, just, you know, different items, and then gets smaller and smaller throughout the other line items. And then the next page is where it's broke down to. That's where it's collected. So the column, you can see the approved 2024 is what we're currently in budget. The recommended is typically what staff does. You'll see that in expenditure, but I do the revenue. Natalie and I and Susan does the revenue. And then the final is what we present to y'all. And then the next column will be the approved once y'all pass the budget. That'll be a third column, but right now it's not, because y'all have not approved it. So that's general fund, and then break down your expenditures, where the money goes. As you can see, public safety, fire, police and fire. Next slide, Kyle. You can see almost 50% goes to public safety, 2 departments alone. And then the other departments are based on that. Water and sewer is in their own fund. They're not part of the general fund. Public may not know that, but sales tax money, property tax money doesn't support the water and sewer. That's done by user fees. Any questions so far on the general fund? Next slide. And I don't know if you can see it, but that's all the departments in the general fund, starting with legislative, which is you all. Executive is me and Christie. Elections, we had none because we didn't have an election.
Danny, would you back up to that chart just a second?
Sure.
For those in the audience, please note, and it's well worth the money, and it saves lives, but the police and fire departments are 49% of the city budget. And then when you look at the income on property taxes, we're planning to collect about $7,800,000, which is about $150,000 less than it's going to cost to run police and fire. Just so you be aware. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you. Yes, the next page is to point out the financial administration is the City Hall girls up front and Natalie's office, IT, the wonderful Kyle in the back doing the visual aid. Government buildings is all the government buildings in the city. Judicial is court. As you can see, police is 4.2 million. Fire is right behind them at 3.7 million. Those two departments alone, where most of the general fund goes. But it's expensive to have public safety and it's well worth it. Then it breaks down to public works, highways and streets, fleet maintenance, the library system, planning and zoning, and economic development. And that's what makes up the general fund. You can see those numbers there for the public. And I'll pause if you have any questions on the general fund. Good? Okay. And then the next page is just breaks down all the departments. People want to read them. It tells you what y'all do, what we do. It tells you we also put the number of staff in each department so that you all can know. If somebody asks you how many officers or staff does police have, you'll know. You can look at this page and it'll tell you. Those are current staff. We go now to 210. Confiscated assets. It's going to be, yeah, about halfway through. It's in your, I don't have the packet. I'm looking at another one. It should be on your page in your packet.
I don't have the numbers on mine.
Page 132. If that's what you're looking for.
Okay.
You're looking for confiscated items?
Yes, confiscated at fund, yes.
132.
Nope, too far, Kyle. It'll be 210. Oh, let me back up to, let me address this. Go to 1510, Kyle. This way back up. I need to address, no, it'll be the third slide, or the third, it goes in order, 1100, 1300, 1510. Yep. Yep, keep going down, other way. Yep, that way, keep going.
It's hard to tell somebody how to drive. Isn't it?
It is, keep going, keep going. Keep going, keep going, yep, keep going.
Doing good, Kyle.
Doing great, keep going. Keep going and stop. So another thing we did also was we put the fees, which you are adopting for the city. All the fees that we charge for every department are in this packet. I need to add one item to alcohol fees. Since we got the new cups and you passed the new ordinance, we are charging 25 cents a cup, or $25 for a sleeve of 100. That is our recommendation to you all. You can all change it. We pay 19 cents, I believe. That's what they cost. Is that correct, Christie? We paid 19 cents. I called Monroe. That's what I believe they were charging. So we just stuck with an even number. That's $25 a sleeve. But I do need to put that in here. So these are all the fees that we pay. Let me see, you may be. Yep, so this starts at the millage rate, 10.89, 88.3. Keep going, scroll down. It's got your beer tax, sanitation fees. These are all the fees that you know that we have. Keep going. Recycling, keep going. Keep going. Peddler's permit. Now we get alcohol fees. This is what we charge. Somebody comes here and buys the license. So for every department that has fees, they're in this book now. And that's something we'll start adopting every year. So I will say, now we go to, I need to add 25 cents, if you're okay with that. And then also we need on 3,500, Cal, go to the fire department. Court fees are mandated by the state. They're in there as well. They're quite long. There's like 60 pages. Kyle, slow down. Those are the court fees that we charge. Those are set by the state, and those have all the add-ons that was required by state law. Okay, you can scroll. But if the public wants to look at this, you can see what a DUI or whatever else may be charged.
I love all these fee schedules.
We can go next to police. You can keep going. They have a fee too. So police department fees, background checks 25, fingerprints 15, license 60, accident reports 5, incident reports 5, and then open records are it's set by state law. Next page, 35, go to 3,500 fees. This is the fire department. Now, the chief did request $25 increase on every item. So this does include a $25 increase if you so should approve. Those have not been changed since the creation of the fees from 2004, I believe. But do want to note that that is a $25 increase. And then the hazardous material, that is a ordinance that we passed back in 2010, 11, I believe. That is if somebody has if they cut out. If somebody spills diesel on the road intentionally, or even if they do it accidentally, we can charge them this fee. So just want you to know that.
So what, it's blank, I mean,
I'm sorry?
is it the fees below that?
Utility is 60. So it can get quite expensive. Most of the time, these are on gas leaks. Somebody digs or does work without calling to dig and hit it, and they're found guilty, because Lawrenceville Gas does come out and do an investigation, and that will determine if it's, if it was within, they're given 3 feet, I believe. Is that, Brandon's talking. I believe 3 feet within their mark. If they're inside that mark, then they're responsible. And that's when we typically charge. All right, the next one would be events. I'm sorry, Jeremy has a fee, his $35 limb pile.
He needs more.
So we can, if y'all want to increase it, now's the time, but
We currently do not charge that, correct?
we charge anything over a 6x6x4.
Okay, that's fair.
$35, I believe. So if y'all
But
want
they
to,
take a pretty good pile of limbs
anything below that they take.
for nothing.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct. Let me see. So the next one will be 7,400. This is the planning department. They have a lot of fees. So these are the current fees as of now. Robbie, I don't believe went up on anything, or did you? Yes, that was, yes. So that's a pass-through charge. So whatever Kecken would charge, we charge to review plans. So these are all the fees for the planning department. They're currently being charged now. There's no addition. Our goal is, from now on, when we do a budget, is to put the fees during the budget time versus someone else in the year, unless something just, y'all change the ordinance or something we have to change, like the alcohol ordinance. And then at events, this is the rental. So this is an increase for Anna Holbrook. We just remodeled it. Christie put 225. We are at 150 now. So that would be an increase if the council decides to. All the other fees are currently the same. And the security deposits are the same. I think the security deposit went up on Anna Holbrook as well. Now we get to 210. Any questions on fees?
So you added T-shirt sales, $15?
Well, we've had them.
Yeah.
When we, grooving on the green shirts, we sell them
Yeah,
at the events.
that's true.
Okay. Confiscated assets, like I said, 110,000. Most of this is getting into specialty funds, but they're pretty much, there's not a lot to them because it's not a lot of stuff, but it's just want to show that where the money goes, it's a balanced budget, but we may get more than we spend. But I have to present a balanced budget to you all. Doesn't mean I have to end with one, but I do have to present one, and this is why it's balanced. We may get more than money, and we may not spend nothing, but that money just stays in the checking account throughout the years. And it's at, like I said, the police chief's discretion on how that money is spent. Now, if it's over my limit, it still has to come for y'all for approval, but he has to make the deciding factor. I can't tell him to use it for this. Any questions on that? And they can be only for certain items. Personnel is not one of them. A lot of police cars have been bought, confiscated back in the day, back in the recession. Okay, hotel motel, this is where we need to correct, make it 85,000. You can see it says 75, but we have 85, and on the next sheet is how I broke it, next one, under expenditures. That's where we increased advertising expense to 20,000, and we increased the chamber to 15,000, to make up that extra 10,000. So specialty funds you can use them on certain items. Hotel motel is one of them. So currently we have a 60-40 split. 60% can go to the general fund, 40% can be used for advertisement or what. So we're a 5% collector for the city of Loganville. Any questions on that? Okay. And those come in quarterly, those payments from quarterly, or some come in monthly, but most come in quarterly, correct? We're seeing a big, not a big increase, but more people, but it's only a few dollars for these Airbnbs. Some companies pay them. Law is still unclear about mom and pop, maybe renting out the room. Law hasn't really been clear on if they're supposed to pay a hotel motel fee, but people like Airbnb, if they have a house, they typically will pay. It may be a couple of dollars, but your big hotel. SPOS, I don't think we need to talk about SPOS. We all know, for the public, SPOS is Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax. So that's a 1 cent that you pay in Walton County and in Gwinnett County. And that money is approved by the voters on different items. Those items are for capital improvements. They're not for personnel issues. There can be buildings, anything mechanical, anything like a building, but not personnel costs, not hiring people. So they're very strict on what you can spend them on, and they're based off of what the voters approved. 17 SPOS, like I said, it's already ran its course, but we still have money, so we have to account for all the money every year that we have anything positive. Destination Park is trying to be wrapped up with the first phase of upgrades to park, the restrooms. We'd also put sidewalks in, and you can see that money is 43% transportation, 13% infrastructure, and 44% recreation. That's what was approved in the 2016 election. Next is the 2019 Walton County SPOS. That is public safety, transportation, and recreation. The 2 new fire trucks, over 1.3 million, I believe, was from that fund. And we still have quite a bit of good money left in transportation that we really haven't spent. But that's what you'll see coming up in the next presentation about Fesco Way and Bobby Boss New Drive. That more likely be y'all's decision on where that money comes from, but I would request SPOS because that's what it's earmarked for, transportation. And you can see 55% transportation, 41% public safety, 4% recreation. 2019 SPOS, we were projected 5.7 million for 6 years. In the 2011, we're projecting for the same time frame 11.3 million. And that is public safety again, transportation, public utilities, and parks and recreation. But there is also a tier 1 project for the Walton County, so they take the first payment, or actually, we agreed for them to split over 12 months, and that is for the jail. That was approved by the referendum, by the voters as well. You can see, public utilities got the most money, 48%, transportation 44%, public safety 6%, and parks 2%. And that money typically stays in the county that it originated from. Typically, it's geographically tied, but trucks and cars can be used even though they cross lines, but like big projects like fire stations typically need to be in the county that the money came from. Same with sewer. It's kind of complicated when you get a sewer plant in Walton County but paying for it out of Gwinnett. But we have done that, and we can do that. But we just have to show the auditors how that money is calculated per capita. All right, putting everybody to sleep yet? The 23-29 Gwinnett SPOS is the last one. That is 4.4 million. And that is also public safety, water and sewer infrastructure, transportation, and recreation. And every one of these are 6-year SPOS. That gets us to ARPA. Any questions on SPOS?
I'm holding all my questions till.
Okay.
One
Right.
thing to just mention, Danny, many of the things that Splosh pays for and things that we have budgeted for, if we decide to do them, would have to be paid for through property taxes if Splosh was not there. It's just a reality of life. And this way, at least everybody coming through Loganville is helping us do the things we need to do to continue a nice city.
Unless it was a water and sewer project, then it would come out of the water fund, yes.
Yeah.
But transportation is a general fund activity.
Just thank goodness the voters voted for it.
Yep.
It's great.
Okay, ARPA, like I said, that's the money that came from the COVID outbreak pandemic. It was based on population, a formula that Department of Revenue for the federal government created. It's a very complicated formula, but it's pretty much based on the population, and we didn't ask for it. They just told us what we got, and we got that over 2 years. So we've already collected the money. We're just holding the money, and we're spending it slowly. Actually, we're spending it more frequently now, but it also draws interest. So we've drew quite a bit of interest on that money to the tune of $152,000 as to date when this was printed. And we're projecting another $60,000 in interest as long as the rates stay up. But what we've used it on is the Breckenridge road repair, $735,000 of that. Spreader truck, $126,000. Repair of sewer pumps, $58,000. And engineering fees for the Claudeburg transmission line was $315,000. We have some more items presented to you tonight that we will request for ARPA. We still have, like I said, $3.78 million to spend, and we broke it down into those categories, like I said earlier, water, sewer, wastewater, and the library. And that is ARPA. Capital recovery. This is based on tap fees, so if taps are up, we get more money. Taps are down, we get less money. That money sits in the account and just waits to a new project. We do projects, like I said, they have to be new projects. They cannot be a repair, or they have to be new pipe, new infrastructure. We budgeted $400,000, and we also expense $400,000. And most of it we put in water infrastructure. All of it we put in water infrastructure. Now we get to the next biggest budget, which is water and sewer, public utilities. As you can see, 4 departments, the revenue is first at $9,939,000, and those 4 line items below it equals that same amount. Water quality is the biggest. It's the plant. That's what treats the sewer. 4,709,519. Then stormwater is the lowest at 682,355, followed by sewer. That is the pipes outside of the plant. That's your pump stations and all the lines running to the plant and the pump station, 788,628. And then the second largest is the water. That's drinking water. That is $3,758,498. And then we break it down into different departments. Those numbers I just said are broke down throughout the packet. And then he also has fees that y'all approve, the 12%. But we also have other fees besides that. We have all the re-inspections, the requests, the water testing, if you break a meter, what we charge. These are all current charges, what we've been charging, reconnect, disconnect.